Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ray, and today is December 16th, which means today is my first day of winter break, and I am so excited. So, I just finished my first semester of university, and I thought it would be a nice way to wrap it up by showing you guys all the art that I made during this semester. I will preface this video by saying I do not go to an actual art school. I just go to a regular university, which I will not be naming in this video just because I'm not totally comfortable with that, but I'm in an arts program at my university. In case you were curious, I am in currently the visual arts and computer science combined major type program. So I took a few art classes as well as some computer science and math classes this semester. I will not be showing you guys any of the work I did in my computer science or math classes. One, because that would be super boring, and two, it's copyrighted all to hell, so there's no way I can show you that without being sued. So I'm just gonna show you the art that I made, because that would be more interesting for you. Anyways, so what classes did I take this semester? I took 5 classes, so you know, your average course load. All of the classes were online because of COVID, unfortunately. But what I took was an introductory drawing and painting class, an introductory sculpture class, a art theory class, we'll call it that to sum it up. It's an art theory class, as well as a calculus class and a computer science class, which we will not be discussing today. So I think it would be good to go through class by class and show you all the artwork I made for each class. So let's get started. Okay, so let's start off with my introductory drawing and painting class that I took. This is the one I was most excited for, as it's most up my alley, I guess, and I had a lot of fun with it, so I have a few pieces to show you. To avoid any problems with my university, hopefully, if you're from my university and you have an issue with this, just contact me, I'll take this video down. But anyway, to avoid any legal issues, I will just be showing you the artwork that I made as a piece, and I won't be talking about the assignment or anything that actually happened in the class, just to not give away class information, you know, that's not a cool thing to do. So, let's get into looking at some art pieces. So, the first piece I made for my drawing and painting class, I don't actually have with me right now, so I'll have to insert some footage over top of this clip showing you the artwork. So, this first drawing that we had to do was an interesting assignment. What we had to do was we had to draw something. In this case, I chose my Build-A-Bear, who currently lives in my bedroom on my shelf wearing my grad cap. So we had to draw this object 4 times. Once having the pencil taped to the end of this 60 centimeter stick, once using a 30 centimeter stick, once holding the very end of the pencil, and once just normally. So that's as much of that as I'll give away, because I don't want to talk too much about what the assignment was. So here is the piece. I'm assuming I'm showing it on screen now. This was an interesting piece to do. I have some footage of me doing it. But yeah, this was a good warm-up kind of assignment, get used to the class. So, the second art piece that we did, I also don't have here with me. Oops! The second piece we did, we had to tape 2 pencils together and do a still life. So I chose my snake plant along with some other things and used a red and green Prismacolor color erase pencil so that there was still some erasing capabilities, though I didn't use it very much. Again, a very experimental type assignment, working more with drawing as an action and less as a finished piece. For our third piece, we had to choose an object to draw blindfolded. You might have seen a couple videos ago I did a fill your sketchbook with me type video, episode 1, episode 2 will come out soon, and I did a blind drawing. So the difference between that and this was, for my blind drawing that I did on my channel, I was still looking at the object and just not looking at the paper while I was drawing. Whereas for this, I was properly wearing a blindfold, and I had to go off of feel by feeling the object that I chose and just drawing. So, the object that I chose is this little vase that I bought in Mexico that is this black clay vase. I think it is just the cutest little thing. With that, I did drawing 1, drawing 2, and drawing 3. So the first 2 were blind, just feeling the object, and the third one was drawing it from memory of what it felt like. We then also had to do a blind drawing of ourselves, and this is what I came up with for that. I used pencil as well as pen and a purple pen to try to create some dimension, and I'm quite pleased. I think it actually does look somewhat like a face, maybe not my face, but I think I got the shapes in there properly, so this is a fun one to do. The next drawing that we had to do was a 360 look at a room, so I chose my bedroom. This was probably my worst piece I did this semester, but I have a few different drawings. This is the first one, second one, third one, fourth one, and it's just a 360 look at my bedroom. These drawings were not the greatest. This is the one assignment that I kind of left till last minute because I was working on calculus assignments and I had like 2 hours to do this, and some of those 2 hours were spent also working on calculus. So while these aren't great drawings, I think this is a nice keepsake to remember what my bedroom looked like because I will be moving hopefully soon. So yeah, that was that assignment. Next up we have what was, I think, the only charcoal drawing we did in this class, and it was supposed to be a self-portrait. So here you go. So for this self-portrait, I was looking in the mirror. I had my hair up in a messy bun, which is why I look a bit like a rat. And then we just used charcoal to create this piece. I don't hate this, but also I feel like it doesn't totally bear my resemblance. So this is one I might try again. Yeah. Can you see the resemblance? It looks exactly like me, I know. So yeah, that was this piece. Okay, so now we get into the painting portion of the class, which was the second half of the semester. First things first, not very interesting, just white to black scale painting. I've done like millions of these over the years. I had to do these a lot in high school for my art class, and I mean, they're just fun to do, so I do these sometimes just for myself. So this was nothing new or exciting, this was just make sure you know how to use paint. So the first actual painting we did was supposed to be a black and white silhouette. So here's what I came up with. So it is a plant from my bedroom, a key, a ladder, and some puzzle pieces. Yeah, not much to say about this piece, it's just what it is. It was fun to do. Yeah, so this was just a black and white painting. The next painting we did was also a black and white painting, but I do not have this one because my grandma really loved it, and I thought it was just kind of meh. So I gave it to her, and it's now hanging at her house. So it was a another black and white painting, but this one was a still life. We did a lot of still lifes for this class. It was a leaf that I had found outside, this giant maple leaf, and then a few other things from around my room. Yeah, this was a fun one to do. That's as much as I have to say about that. Now we get into the colored paintings that we did. So our teacher made us do 3 different paintings, all with very selective color palettes. So the first one we did was a red and green painting. We had to do another self-portrait, and this is what I came up with. For this piece we had to paint using only utensils, so spoons, forks, the like. So that's why it looks like this. For reference, I used a photo I had taken of myself a bit earlier that I really liked and I thought would translate well into this piece. Painting with forks is not easy, as it turns out. The eye, I think, was the hardest part to do, but I do really love the texture that this piece has now because the paint went on quite thick with the spoons and forks. And I think it's just really interesting that I managed to get such color variation considering I was still mixing with spoons and forks and only using red and green and white. So yeah, that's this piece. Our next selective color palette was orange and blue. And again, another still life. Here's what I came up with. I quite like how this turned out. I especially love the details on the vase. I think that turned out very well. The boot leaves something to be desired, but fun fact, the thing in the middle is a bag of sugar, I think. I was really running out of things to paint at this point. Again, not my best painting, but still, considering I was just using 2 colors and white, and yeah, that's all I have to say about this one. Our last selective color palette was a purple and yellow. I actually have it right here. This is our first one on canvas, and here's what I came up with. So for this piece, I painted my camera, 2 of my little plastic succulents from IKEA, and a bottle of ink over top of a tea towel. I think at this point I was getting better at drawing, or I guess painting, fabric and shadows underneath and shadows on, so I think that's something I improved on. I don't totally love how the camera turned out. I found it a lot more difficult to get a dark color with just the purple and yellow than I did with the red and green and the orange and blue. But I do think it turned out okay, considering what it is and what it was made out of. So yeah, this is our last still life we had to do. Okay, the last piece I have to show you for this class is my favorite piece that I made all semester, and quite honestly, might be my favorite thing I've ever painted. It turned out so well and I'm so happy with it. So for our final assignment, we could use all the colors we wanted. Not black though, which was still a bit challenging, but not as challenging as I thought it would be. It was interesting. And we had to paint an image that we found online. I won't talk more about what the assignment was, but I painted Monica with a turkey on her head. I love this painting a little too much. This is the one I spent the most time on. This took about 6 hours, I think. The other ones were done in maybe 2 or 3. So yeah, this is obviously from Friends, the scene where Monica puts the turkey on her head to cheer up Chandler. And yeah, this was really fun to paint. I especially like how the fabric turned out, especially this. You know when you're an artist and there's just one little thing about your piece that no one else notices, but it makes you super happy? That's me with this one reflection, light on her sweater. But yeah, I really love doing this. I think the turkey, the texture I got on here turned out quite well. It was really quite something to do. So yeah, this is definitely the best piece I made this semester for any of my classes. And this is one that's going to be proudly displayed somewhere when we move. Don't know where yet, maybe in my bedroom. This was also definitely the most fun to do, because obviously I love Friends, and this was this is one of my favorite episodes, so yeah. This is my painting of Monica. So, that's everything I made for my drawing and painting class. Let's move on to what I made for my art theory class. So, the pieces I made for my art theory class were a bit all over the place, to say the least. The assignments were usually about a different concept of art, or an art movement, rather than a specific medium to use, so a lot of it was open to interpretation. A lot of the assignments I did for this class were just writing based, so either writing a poem, or I wrote a manifesto for one of the pieces, and then there was a lot of essay writing, so not a lot of actual physical artwork to show you guys, but there is still some, so I'll show you what I made. So the first piece I have to show you, we were looking at, I don't even know how to describe this to you without telling you anything about what happened in the course, but I guess I could say it was a lot about patterns in squares as relating to a specific art movement. That's as much as I'm going to say about that. So I ended up interpreting it a bit differently, and I made this piece. It is just a lot of squares filled in with patterns. The cool thing about this piece is that I have a key somewhere. I've now misplaced it. It was on a separate piece of paper, but each one of these squares corresponds with a letter or symbol, and it actually spells something out. So this piece actually spells out some of the lyrics to Friend Like Me from Aladdin. Not totally sure why I picked lyrics to Friend Like Me from Aladdin. I haven't watched Aladdin in years, but One of my dreams is to be in a production of Aladdin and play the genie. That's like one of my top goals to accomplish, hopefully in the near future. So I think I was just thinking about that while I was making this piece. So yeah, this is some of the lyrics to Friend Like Me. So after I did this piece, I did another piece where I was kind of working off of what I made here to make something similar but more evolved, more thought out. And what I ended up doing was taking inspiration from some of my classmates who did this piece, and I did it digitally. So I'll insert a picture here. So what I did was I kept the same lyrics to Friend Like Me, and I changed up the patterns a bit so they were a bit more cohesive, and I digitally turned it into this mess. This piece hurt me physically and emotionally. It was not fun to do, but I do really love the way it turned out. I think it's really interesting to look at, and when you know that it's lyrics to a song, it's just like, what? I don't know. I posted this one on my Instagram, and a lot of people thought I was dead because I looked at that for too long, which I understand. I did go slightly crazy while making that, but yeah, that was a really interesting piece. It was kind of like, do what you want and run with it, so I did what I wanted and I ran with it, very much so. So that's that piece. The next piece I have to show you I no longer have with me because it doesn't exist anymore, because I got rid of it. And what we had to do was make a miniature landscape. And so what I did was I took my cup that I usually keep pencil shavings in, and I went outside, found a bit of dirt, some moss, some of these little plants that look almost like little trees, and I placed it in this cup to make what as close to a British Columbia landscape as I could. I live in BC, so there's a lot of inspiration around me, and I really love the West Coast kind of aesthetic landscapes. So I also dug a small hole in the side and I filled it with water to make a little lake, and I took lots of photographs of it. This was actually really fun to do. It was really quick, but really interesting to think about because I was trying to mimic the look of British Columbia landscapes, which is something I've never really done before with an art piece. And yeah, it was really interesting to think about. I had a lot of fun with this. This one sat on my coffee table for a while until the moss got kind of sad looking and the water had evaporated, and I needed my pencil shaving container back, so I returned it back to the earth. It's back outside, and I now have my container back. So yeah, I don't have this piece anymore, but I still have the photos to show what it was. Our next piece, I don't want to talk about what happened in the class, but we were talking about protests and activism and stuff. And so we had to do a drawing based on a photo we found of a protest. So I drew this image that I found of some people protesting the war in Iraq, which happened the year I was born. So I don't remember this per se. It was something that was relevant when I was born. So yeah, just found this image on the internet, drew it kind of haphazardly. It's not my best drawing. This man, where is he? This man doesn't have any feet. Yeah, so not my best drawing. Art theory class was not my favorite. I don't know, just not something I was interested in. But yeah, now I have this drawing of the Iraq war protests. And that's something, right? The next piece I have to show you for this class is probably my favorite thing that I made for this class, and it is this drawing of my camera. I didn't realize I had never drawn my camera before. This is before I painted that other piece for my art class of my camera. That's what inspired that. We had to draw something about a community we were a part of, and I'm like, well, I don't physically go to school, and I'm not in any clubs, so what communities am I a part of? So I went with a photography community, even though I don't actually know any other photographers. I was originally going to do cosplay community, but I just did not want to draw myself in cosplay. No, that's not happening. So anyway, it is a drawing of my camera, painted with watercolors, and on the side here it says, "Preserving moments otherwise unseen." Is it gonna focus? Yeah. So yeah, this was a interesting piece. I was just excited to draw my camera. I think it turned out great. I had a lot of fun drawing my camera. Yeah. So yeah, that's this piece. So for this last piece for my art theory class, we had to bridge two gaps together. I'm just gonna say that, I don't want to say anymore. So I did art and photography, bringing them together. So here's what I came up with. Just ignore this. This is from a art meeting hangout thing with some people on Zoom. So this is what I did. I printed out a photo I took of myself. Did I take this last year? I think I took this last year in the winter. I turned it black and white so that I'd have more room to play. And then on it I used watercolor and gouache in the background to add the green back into the greenery, and I colored in my hat. And then I used Posca markers to add kind of just fun explosions and color dripping, and yeah. Combining painting and photography is something I've been trying to figure out how to do because I have such a love for both of those mediums, but I've never really found a way to properly put it together other than like Photoshop, and I'm not good at Photoshop right now, so this was a good jumping off point, I think. I don't think I'll be doing this particular style of art and painting together again, but this was a very good inspiration, and I'm excited to carry this idea of combining painting and photography in the future. So yeah, that's this piece. So that's everything I made for my art theory class. Just one class left, and that is my introductory sculpture class. So let's have a look at what I made for that. So sculpture was one of those classes that I took more so because it was a program requirement and less because I like sculpture. All throughout my high school art classes, I was adamant on the thought that I do not like sculpture. Sculpture is not for me. I don't like working with clay. It gets under my nails. It never looks good. I prefer working on a 2D medium, drawing or painting. That's where I am. To my surprise, I actually really loved this class. If we're being honest, it might be more so because I really liked the teacher and the classmates and the conversations we had, because this is one of the only classes where I actually got to talk to other students. I still have only properly met a couple students. I've met no students in person. But yeah, I really loved the whole vibe this class had. It was very experimental. It was very, I know you're working at home, just do what you can do and see what comes out of it. So yeah, this was a fun class to take. Our first project for this class was a photography assignment, much to my surprise and delight. We had to go out and take photos of very specific forms that are often found in sculptures. Again, don't want to say very much about that. Maybe I'll insert a couple photos here of some of the ones that I like. Yeah, so probably doesn't mean anything to you. These are just kind of random photos, but it was an interesting assignment. The first proper sculpture that we made was it was a strange one, to say the least. We had to get a piece of fabric. So I went to the thrift store and got a bed sheet, and we had to wrap different objects in this fabric and create different forms and shapes. So here is what I made. This thing. So yeah, this is definitely not something that's gonna be in a gallery anytime soon, but I had a lot of fun making this. Again, this is our first project for our sculpture class, and I think this is when I was realizing, oh, it's not your typical make a clay sculpture of a pot. It's do this nonsense. Nonsense I made. I took my pink bed sheet that I found at the thrift store, and I wrapped up a wicker basket, which I also found at the thrift store. And then there's a wine glass in here, which I also found at the thrift store. And then at the top are a bunch of knitting needles covered in fabric, which I also found at the thrift store. I thought I was being so clever when in between here I braided these pieces of fabric just so you could see a little bit of the wine glass. I thought that was just the biggest breakthrough. But yeah, this is definitely an interesting piece. This definitely isn't something I will be keeping as a centerpiece for Thanksgiving, but yeah, I think I'm gonna keep it for now just because it's just so strange and funny to look at. It's been sitting at a little platform at the bottom of my stairs, so every time someone goes downstairs it's like, oh, there's that thing again. I think it's really amusing. This was an interesting first sculpture to make for this class. Yeah, this was a good introduction. The next piece we made, again, I don't have with me. I don't have a lot of my sculptures with me because when I was taking photos of them to submit, because we had to submit the photos online, can't exactly go in and hand in a sculpture when we're doing online classes. All the photos I took were in a different building, so all my sculptures are over there right now. So yeah, I don't have all my sculptures with me, but this next one we did was taking a wooden object. I used a little wooden sculpture I found at the thrift store. I'll insert a photo here of what it originally looked like. Wow, look at that. And then we had to sand it down and kind of remove what it was originally and turn it into something else. Here's what I came up with. This is a really interesting project to me. This was a fun one to do because I got to work with my dad a little bit. He's a carpenter, so he let me use a couple of his electric sanders to create this piece, which I'd never used before, so I don't know, it was kind of fun. And then I hand sanded the rest. So I just was focusing on erasing the original face of the figure and trying to carve in some new odd shapes. I do still think it looks like human, like figure-wise. Like if I looked at it, I'm like, oh, that's a person holding a basket. But I think I got rid of what it originally was pretty successfully, so that's what I did for this assignment. Next up, we had a project where we had to take a pre-existing object and remove it down to its individual parts. So I chose a candle, which obviously is just wax and wick, so not a lot to work with there. And I melted down the wax into, well, I used a paint can lid just because I needed something to shape it, and then I put the wick back on top. The hardest part was definitely getting the wick out without damaging it. So yeah, this was a fun project. I got to use a blowtorch and melt down the wax. I tried adding food coloring, but I guess something about the wax and the liquid in the food coloring, you know, it was water-based, did not go well. It just kind of congealed, so I ended up using oil paints, and that worked much better to add some color back into this piece. Overall, not the most exciting piece to look at, but it was interesting to think about taking something that has different parts and breaking it down into one new sculpture. The next project we did was not so much a project per se. We just had a little workshop tutorial kind of thing on how to use plaster in sculpture, which I had never done before. So we took molds that were like juice carton or like milk carton containers and poured the plaster into there, experimenting with putting objects into the plaster and using paint and colors, and yeah, so I hopefully will be showing footage here of what they look like. I turned one of them into a candle holder. That was exciting. The candle holder is 2 layers. The one on the bottom, on the edges I used green tea leaves to add texture, which was something experimental and fun. The rest of them I just used ink, and I used India ink to color, and for one of them I put some like plant material on the top, but most of it just sunk right into the plaster. So yeah, that's that. Not much to say about that. That was just more so an experiment just to see what plaster does. Our last assignment was a very open-ended one, and it was do something that will change over time. I'm not going to go into details of the specifics of the assignment. Again, I've said that so many times, but I'm just reiterating, I don't want to give away what the class assignments are. I just want to show you my art that I made. And so what I did was I made salt crystals. I used to do this in elementary school where you like add salt to water until it's totally saturated, and then you put in a string and this crystals form on the string. It did not go well, surprisingly. I really don't know what I did wrong. I used Epsom salts instead of regular salts. I think that might have been what tripped me up at first. But anyway, I managed to get some crystals forming. They weren't exactly the grand crystals I had envisioned. And my end goal for this project was to then take the crystals and put them into plaster and make a geode. That also did not go well. So here is the geode that I made. Yeah, it's rather sad looking. So the crystals that I used, they did not form properly. They're quite small. I tried to put them into the plaster, but they just sunk right in and they got totally covered. This definitely isn't the condensed crystal cluster I had envisioned for my geode. But then while I was making that, I noticed some of the cups that I had of salt, the salt had crystallized at the bottom. And I'm like, I wonder if I can use that. So I actually ended up making 2 more crystals, and they look like these, or geodes, I guess. And they look like these. I'm quite happy with how these ones turned out. I do feel like these look properly like geodes. So it's just the salt crystals here. There you go, you can see that. And then I put this into a bowl and kind of made this mold around it and used plaster around. And then again, the same gold paint around the outside to make these crystals. So this one's kind of a purpley color and very spherical. This one is a light blue and a bit more misshapen. That was kind of the goal here, is to get it a bit more misshapen because obviously in nature you're not going to have perfect circular anything. So yeah, these are what I came up with for my final assignment. I really like how these turned out. I think these are cool. Really no idea what I'm going to use these for. Wow! I'm very glad I made these. I think they're super cool and very experimental, and I learned a lot about how to deal with things when they don't go right. Oh my gosh, I nearly forgot. I do have one more things to show you. I do have it right there, but I'm not going to show it right now because I don't want to pick it up. I'll insert some footage for you. But it is a studio space. Yeah, you heard me right. One of our assignments was to make a place to hold all of our materials that we use in the class that was kind of portable, we could take around, and then had a workspace on top. So I put a cutting board on top. So yeah, I chose to use a briefcase just because I thought it would be easy to store things in. I, again, found this at the thrift store. I went to the thrift store so many times for this class, it was kind of ridiculous. So yeah, it has these legs on the bottom that are foldable, that they collapse right in and then they extend, and it has some fairy lights on the inside just for decorative purposes. This was a weird assignment. I mean, I understood the purpose of it, but I just for some reason could not mentally wrap my head around doing it, so I did end up putting this off quite a lot. So yeah, this is what I came up with. It's very odd, to say the least. Okay, so I lied when I said the crystals were my final project. Our final project for this class was probably the coolest thing I did all semester. I really loved this project, and that was to take all the documentation I had of my sculptures and turn them into a book! This was so fun to do. If you know me, I love photography, so I was really excited to take proper photos of all my sculptures and to turn them into a book, kind of a tour of what I made. To make this, we used a service called Blurb. I don't know if you've heard of it, but I do highly recommend their website if you want to make a magazine or picture book. Not sponsored, not sponsored, but yeah, they had a very easy to work with system, and this magazine I think cost me $6 to make, which is crazy considering this is a very nice quality magazine. Shipping was a bit expensive, but shipping's always expensive. This was so much fun. Like, look, I love doing this kind of stuff. This was right up my alley. So yeah, this is the book I made. So yeah, I think this is just a super cool recap of everything that I made, and I'm really excited to keep this and then in the future be able to look back on, oh, what art did I make in my sculpture class, and here, now I know. So that's all the art that I made in my first semester of university. I hope you liked looking through it with me. It was a very nice recap for me to kind of end off the semester nicely. Again, I tried my best to make this as much about my artwork as possible and not say much about the actual classes or the class work or the assignments, because I don't want to give away information about my school's classes. That's not a cool or legal thing to do. So again, if you're from my university and this isn't cool, I will take this video down happily, but I just wanted to share what I made because I'm really proud of a lot of it, especially considering everything was online. It was a very challenging semester, but I think I managed to produce some pretty good stuff. I just want to say thank you so much for watching, especially if you were not someone that I know, you were just some person from the internet who came across my content. It means a lot to me that you're interested in what I'm doing. And to those of you who are my family and friends, thank you also for watching. Your support means the world to me, and it's great that you want to see what I'm doing. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!